And so we're back with lessons from Ezekiel 23 to 24. Now, the metaphor of used to describe Samaria and Jerusalem as two adulterous sisters named Oholab and Oholiabab. First of all, I found those names really funny, but then the description and the metaphor used was actually really graphic. God has often compared his relationship with his people as a marriage, and anything that deviates, makes them deviate from him, either in sin, rebellion, idolatry, all the things that they did at the time, he often referred to as adultery. So they turned their eyes away from God and looked to other nations, and in engaging them, in engaging those nations, they began to adopt some of their practices as well as their gods. Samaria apparently appeared to be the older sister, Ohola. I don't know why I called it Oholab. Anyway, yeah, I find those names really funny. But so Oholab was carried on horribly with the sin of idolatry. It was described, very graphically, all the horrible things that they did, and they experienced downfall and destruction as a result. Now, Jerusalem, the younger sister, Oholibab, saw all of these things that happened, and one would think that the natural reaction will be repentance because you've seen what your sister has done, but instead they didn't learn from that. They did worse. At the beginning of chapter 24, God told Ezekiel, who was then in exile in Babylon, what was happening real time in Jerusalem, that they had been under a siege by the king of Babylon. Then he commanded him to tell the people a parable to explain to them what was coming, with the metaphor of a boiling pot and meat. Now remember, this isn't the very first time we're hearing about a boiling pot and meat, because back in chapter 11, when after the time when the glory of the Lord was getting ready to leave the temple, and God asked the angel with the wearing the linen to throw down holy fire, which he got from amongst the midst of the cherubim, the elders came to Ezekiel when they came to meet him to inquire of him, and told him that, the city was a pot and they were the meat and they were going to cook in the city. And Ezekiel told them, oh no, you're not cooking in the city, you're actually going to die outside of the city, you're going on exile. So we see the boiling pot metaphor actually coming to pass here. The point of the parable was to point out how Israel had contributed and had just done so much idolatry and sin, ignoring God's law, but also the fact that they weren't ashamed or remorseful about the things that they did. Now we come to the difficult parts of the reading for me, when Ezekiel lost his wife, when God told him that his wife was going to die, and Ezekiel felt the pain of Jerusalem's coming judgment through the death of his wife. And the back part was that he wasn't allowed to mourn publicly, but only privately. And God used his tragedy as a symbol for the people to learn from, that they would suffer, but they won't be allowed to mourn publicly, because in their case, their suffering was a consequence of their own actions, while Ezekiel's obviously was a typification of what was to come. God used Ezekiel as a signpost to direct the people to him, to help them know that he was God, as he said in chapter 27. But then again, I've said it one too many times, the job of a prophet in these days was not easy, because his life had to be a typification, or he had to, he has done so many sign acts and things are happening to him that are helping him feel what the Israelites will feel, so that he can convey the message to them. The end of the chapter revealed that Ezekiel had been mute. Now, I didn't know this, because for all the times that he was prophesying, but then for what I gathered was he was probably mute except when he was prophesying. And God let him know that when all the prophecies had been completed, a lone survivor from Jerusalem will come to him to confirm, and when they do, he will get his speech back and he'll be able to speak freely. Now, here's what I learned about God from these chapters. God cared so much about the people that he gave them Ezekiel. Ezekiel was a prophet who could feel their pain, who was typifying and symbolizing everything that was coming to them. And because God had given him the task and the ability to demonstrate his judgment, he knew that they wouldn't listen. God knew that they wouldn't listen, but he still wasn't relentless. Now, this reminds me of Jesus, and I believe that Ezekiel was imaging Christ here. Jesus came into this world to die for his people, knowing that they would not accept him. In fact, knowing that they would want to kill him, they would want him dead, and they wouldn't understand or accept his sacrifice. But he still did it. He didn't turn back. He didn't say, oh, because these people are so ungrateful. So I think about Ezekiel because, I've wondered about his character and seeing that he knew that he was sent from God and God strengthened him to carry out these things. Jesus, just like Ezekiel, didn't complain and didn't express bitterness. Jesus' pain for us was real, and yet he still went to the cross for our salvation. Now, what does that teach you about God and his love for us? I hope this gives you some food for thought and perhaps maybe things to think about that you can do and how to endure, things to do to endure suffering and times of hardship. Thank you for joining me today. We'll continue tomorrow. Can't wait to see you here. God bless.